so that, there you go, you have been forewarned. So first of all, I just want to, I want to welcome everyone here to our Legal Well-Being Network. And I am Heidi Alexander. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am the director of the SJC Standing Committee on Lawyer Well-Being, which I know many of you are familiar with in Massachusetts. We were formed back in January of 2020, and we have been working to implement our report and recommendations, which our steering committee prepared in July of 2019. So hopefully you are on our newsletter and you have some sense of all the different projects and initiatives and programs we have going on. If not, I would encourage you to just take a look at our website. We archive all those newsletters and have most of our projects available on the website. So this group, the Legal Well-Being Network, has been meeting every other month for over a year now, and it draws a diverse group of people, all who are committed to improving well-being in the profession. And so we try to bring you presenters that can share information that will be helpful to you, to your workplaces, and your efforts towards well-being, both organizationally and individually. We've also been working to create a repository of resources from these meetings. So we've been sharing the recordings and the materials on our website, and we'll put the link to that web page in the chat. So you have that, and you'll see that we have recordings available. So the last meeting we had was, we had speaker Jared Reich, who is from the University of Miami School of Law, and he talked about the business case for lawyer well-being. So that is recorded and that's available there. We've had a number of other meetings. We had a meeting with Joe Milowick, who is the founder of the Lawyers Depression Project, which is a great organization that provides peer support. We had our very own here, Laurie Cappello, who's the first director of well-being at Mintz, talk about all of what she is doing at Mintz. We've had, I'm seeing Bernardo Quadra talk about the efforts at the Attorney General's office, and I'm probably missing people here because there are so many people. You are now on my second screen. So, but we've had some fantastic speakers. So, so check out those recordings. And so, like I said, we will have time at the end for discussion. You know, please feel free to ask our speakers questions after they present, but we will have time at the very end for discussion between all of you. And so we hope that you will connect with other attendees at this meeting to share resources and ideas. Nice. So if you would like, we would ask that you consider adding your name and your affiliation and contact information in the chat if you would like. Feel free. And if you do unmute yourself to speak, or you raise your hand, it would be helpful if you introduce yourself before you speak, and just let us know who you are, maybe who you're affiliated with. That would be fantastic, because I know that we have a lot of new people here today, so it would be great to meet all of you. So we're gonna move right to our speakers. We are gonna hear from 3 speakers today, and I am just thrilled to have them all here participating. So our first speaker is Mala Rafik, who is one of our amazing standing committee members. Mala is the managing partner at Rosenfeld Rafik, which is a law firm in New England, and she represents clients who have been denied access to healthcare, as well as individuals that are seeking short and long-term disability, life, and long-term care benefits from private insurance carriers. She's also the chair of the board of directors at the Massachusetts Legal Assistance Corporation and the chair of the board of directors of Health Law and a member of the directors of the Prisons Legal Services
No
and
more,
a member
no more.
and more and
Stop.
more and more and more.
Stop.
So Mala is fantastic, and Mala is actually doing a program for us tomorrow with the Mass Bar Association on health insurance and disability benefits for solo and small firm practitioners. And so if you are interested in that, we'll also put a link to the registration there. It is a free program, and Mala and other experts will be discussing that. So Mala recently spoke on a panel for the Mass Bar Association, which was entitled "Adapting to Work in an Uncertain World: Opportunities for Positive Change in the Practice of Law." And Mala spoke about the different well-being efforts that she's implemented at her own firm. And so in this group, we've often focused on the larger firms and other entities, but we really haven't heard from any of the smaller firms and the mid-sized firms. And so I asked Mala to come here today and to share with us her perspective and all the very creative programs and initiatives that she's implemented at her firm, which I hope will give others many ideas and also inspiration. So Mala, I will turn it over to you now.
Thank you. And thanks for being so kind. So thank you everyone for being here and for being willing to listen. I think that when COVID hit, none of us knew what to expect. And I personally ramped up how much I was working because I was so fearful that our firm was going to fail and we weren't going to survive. And I was fearful that we're a small firm. There's 8 of us. We all happen to be randomly women and half of us are mothers. I think there's 7 kids that are part of our firm. And I really, we've been friends for a long time. We've worked together for a long time. So trying to ensure that they could continue to work and the firm could continue to sustain itself kept me up. I mean, it was like the 3 a.m. scaries took on a whole new level of anxiety. So the first thing I did was listen to every podcast in the world and try to learn about technology, because I figured that technology was the one thing that was going to allow us to continue to sustain ourselves while we were working from home. I even listened to one, Heidi, that you did from years ago on OneNote, I think it was. But so I listened to every podcast and we updated our technology quite a bit. So we, simple things like being able to fax from our desk. So people could fax from their home desks and send out letters and not feel like they had to ask somebody in the office to do it. We upgraded our phone system so that it's now an app on your cell phone and you can call from that app and it looks like you're calling from the office. So people could, didn't need to have to dial into the phone system, and it was less expensive and it's on the cloud. So everything is right there on the cloud. We got a new case management system. We always had a case management system that we liked, but we upgraded to one that was much more user-friendly, that people could use from everywhere, and that integrated with our, we're a Microsoft firm, so we use Outlook and quite a bit. So we got a case management system that integrated well with Outlook and with Microsoft Teams, which became the way that we choose the right audio apps for you. Siri's telling me that I should probably stop talking. That integrated with Teams so that we could communicate, Microsoft Teams, so that we could work on cases and communicate together while our case management software was right there. So we chose Clio because it just was the one that worked best for us, but that was a huge decision and the best investment I think that we've ever made, because people can do it from their phone if they need to. It has a really user-friendly app, and that was one of the major qualifications that I wanted for a case management system, something that you could use on the go. So what I sort of was thinking about, and my associate is a mother of 2, and she's the only other lawyer in the firm. So we talked a lot about it, and she said, one of the things she said really struck me. Sometimes I'm waiting in a car for a really long time for my kids. And that's a few moments of time that I could use to do work, to make a phone call to a client, to check, to send an email, to check, the status of something. So that was why we wanted a case management system that had a great app. That's why we wanted a phone system that you could use from your cell phone. It was I think that this past year, what we learned was that so much of our time is stolen time in between other things. And the more we could make use of that time so that people didn't feel like they were falling behind or that they were stressed out was really important to me and to all of us. We also upgraded our Microsoft accounts so that there were all apps that we have access to everything. We updated Adobe. Technology became the forefront of everything that has allowed us to continue to work remotely. And with that setup, we then just became a fluid, pretty much remote workplace. I'm not requiring people to come back to the office. The office still exists. I'm here every day because if I'm home, I will do laundry and clean baseboards, two things that I despise doing. So I come in, but I don't require anyone to come in, and people come in if they want to or they don't want to, but they're so well set up at home that they don't need to. We meet twice a week as a team through Microsoft Teams or through Zoom, and we have a staff meeting, and we have sort of a fun meeting where we do trivia and other random things that we used to do in person, but we do together as a firm. And kids are part of that. Oftentimes animals are part of that, but it has been sort of a way to hold us together over time. The other thing is everyone meets with each other at least once a week. So I meet with every single person at the firm once a week for at least an hour. And that's both to talk about cases and to check in to see how people are doing. And they've turned into much more of a social time than a work time. I do this work because obviously I love it, but I love the people I work with. And I think that's the thing I've missed the most in the last year is just having us together. So technology has become a huge part of that. And in some ways we've gotten to know each other better and our kids better because they're a part of everything we do. So not having a requirement to be in the office and creating a fluid workplace, I think is what people will say are the two biggest and most important things that we've done. So the part about the fluid workplace is we do not require anyone to work 9 to 5 anymore. There's no set hours. You work when you can in a 7-day work week. And as long as you get your work done, that's fine. I mean, we all have deadlines and we have times that we need to be in the office. But other than that, what's more important is that people are around to, as my associate calls it, stolen moments with her kids was the best part about this year. So those stolen moments are really important. So if those are at 1 p.m. or those are at 3 p.m., that's totally fine. And if she wants to work at 10, that's fine too. I think with the law, any of that is feasible. So that's what I've said. And, we've never had a billable hour standard because we've never had to, but we've said, if you can get in at least 6 hours a day, that's fine. If you can't, we'll talk. But however you do that is your call. The other thing is we're not requiring people to actually be at home. So one of our employees is going to be in Texas the month of January. It doesn't really matter. People can live their lives and do their work. And the more leeway you give them and the more trust you have in them, I have found the better the work product is. People really have responded. And I think our firm has never been in many ways stronger because we have, because we trust each other and people are just are doing more. In some ways, I worry that people are doing more than they ever did before, but I check in regularly, I check in weekly, and the feedback I've received is that people have learned everyone here has learned how to get more done in a shorter period of time, simply because they have to, and the technology makes that a lot easier. So benefits have always been a huge part, employee benefits, but those sort of changed a little bit. They've been a huge part of what we do. So we provide health insurance for everyone and we pay 100% of health insurance. That was the most important thing that we did when we started the firm, and that's something we've held on to. When COVID hit, because I am a huge proponent of therapy and I am in therapy regularly, we made sure that our health insurance carrier would allow for our employees to go out to find their own therapists, or if they needed them, and help them submit reimbursements to the health insurance carrier to get those therapy visits reimbursed. That it's something I do, and I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that that was something that we will help them do. And we continue to maintain the health insurance. We always paid for people to go to have a gym membership. That was something that we continued over COVID as well. It just doesn't happen to be the same gym where that's right across the street from the office. But if you wanted to go to the gym, we'll pay your gym membership. We always paid for nutrition because it was part of our gym. There's a nutritionist at our gym, so we continued that on along as well. We have 4 weeks of paid time off a year, and that's not sick or vacation time. That's just use it however you see fit, and we're not going to ask any questions. And that's something that was incredibly hard to make sure people continued. So I would tell people, you have 3 weeks left, use it, and you have to use it. And I think that, and the problem is that I'm the worst kind of leader because I don't use it. So I tried to force myself to actually take time off or schedule a vacation so that people knew that it was okay to do. And that's the part I fail at considerably. But I try to check in with people to make sure that they use those 4 weeks. And people have really been good about sort of getting back in the groove. I think last year, the thing I was most worried about was that people weren't doing that. No one was shutting down because there was nothing else to do. So I think it's incumbent upon us who run small firms to make sure that people are doing that. So those are sort of the 3 areas where we changed. So technology, how the workday looks, sort of fluid workplace, and then the benefits that we provide people. I will say that I think that for small firm and solos, the people in charge really, we don't practice what we preach, and it becomes sort of I've called it a slow creep. As the last 2 years have progressed, you start off with the best of intentions for well-being and taking care of yourself. And then all of a sudden you find yourself back in a place where you're working 10 hours a day. And you don't know how to shut it off because there's always that fear of, April 2020, and am I going to make it? And am I going to succeed? And so you worry that I'm not going to be able to make it, I'm not going to succeed, and I'm not going to be able to support these people. So you work a little bit more and then a little bit more. I will say that people have worked better and harder in the past year with these benefits in a fluid work environment, but I still worry. So I've worked more. The best thing I've done for myself is hired a coach. I think I saw her, Susan White. And that was the very best thing I could have possibly done for myself, because a lot of these things Susan helped me work through. And trying to figure out how to keep my firm going throughout this time and how to be an effective leader was something I didn't know how to do. And having someone to bounce things off of and someone to give me guidance was really, really important. But I think that the biggest struggle for small firms and solos right now is, are we going to continue? Are we going to be able to sustain ourselves? It's really easy to take care of the people you work with, but it's really, really hard to continue to practice law with the idea of how are we going to do this? Are we going to be able to succeed hanging over your head? So that's, I think, the biggest struggle. But I hope that this has been helpful. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mala. I will open it up for questions now. Anyone have questions, comments? Feel free to, if you would like to raise your hand or unmute would be okay as well.
I've got a quick question.
Sure, go
Mala,
ahead.
you've got a pretty unique practice area. Do you see that this could be translated across different practice settings?
I do, Paul. I mean, you know, we're litigators, so at heart. So if the courts continue to make it as accessible as they have been, absolutely. I mean, there isn't one thing you can't do at home that you can't that you can do in the office or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Words are so hard for a litigator. There isn't. It's been seamless, really. You know,
Yeah.
once we got the phone app and Clio, it was absolutely seamless. So the clients don't know where people are. And we're on Zoom all the time for court. And so it absolutely translates perfectly. I think that the ability to continue it, Paul, you're absolutely right, is going to be how the courts, if the courts require us to come back in for just motion hearings, it's going to be a lot harder. But now, for now, it's really worked out.
Right.
And thank you for asking a question.
Anyone? Laurie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to thank you, Mala, for all your sharing. And, you know, obviously it's a little bit different with your size firm and the larger firms, but I will agree 100% that the flexibility is something that, you know, can be creative and work differently in different areas, and employees do appreciate it. And, you know, I think it's something that one of the silver linings, I'll say, of this whole time is recognizing that you don't have to physically be in a space to be productive. And so thank you for all that you shared and for your creativity, and best wishes for success.
Thank you. I think just to add to that, I think it really is a bright, it's such a bright, it's so positive. It's such a positive. You know, my mom passed away in the middle of COVID, and the person who's spending January in Texas is with her mom as she's ill. And I think to myself, if it had been COVID and we'd had all these things in place, I would have spent many months with my mom before she had passed away, because I would have had the ability to do so. And I think we now do. I mean, everyone's letting us. So it's a silver lining.
Other questions, comments for Mala before we transition? Okay, I don't see any specific questions right now, but I'm sure some of those ideas will come up later when we have a discussion. So thank you again, Mala. We appreciate it. Appreciate all your sharing and your insights, and of course we appreciate all that you're doing to improve well-being for attorneys here in Massachusetts. So I'm going to transition now to our next speaker, and we're going to hear from Shira Diner. So Shira Diner is currently the director of associate development and recruitment at Todd Weld, which is a mid-sized firm. And Shira, as you may know from being at past meetings, has been an avid participant in our Legal Wellbeing Network meetings. So we're happy to have her speak here. Before she joined Todd Weld, she was the supervising attorney in the criminal defense training unit at CPCS. She also serves as the commissioner on the Massachusetts Sentencing Commission, and she's an adjunct clinical professor at Suffolk Law. She lectures on criminal law topics and is the chair of the Criminal Law Curriculum Advisory Committee of MCLE. And so I know she has been working hard to incorporate well-being related programs and initiatives as part of her work at Todd Weld. So she is going to share some of those with us today. So welcome, Shira.
Thank you. This is super exciting for me to be able to talk about some of the things we're doing at Todd Weld. Just to sort of get everyone grounded about how we're set up and how I approach this work. I am new to this particular type of work. As Heidi explained, I was at CPCS for 17 years before I transitioned over to Todd Weld. So I have been doing as much learning as anybody else over the last 3 years, almost 3 years since I've been there. And one of the things that really struck me when I took the job and when I started the job is that they wanted me to do so many different things that seemed very, at first glance, unrelated to each other. And so I had to do hiring, I do workload assignments, I work on professional development, I work on training, I work on diversity inclusion initiatives, and it seemed sort of at the beginning of, it was like a hodgepodge of things that I did. And as I've gotten more comfortable in the job and have more of ability to sort of look at it and see it for what it is, I realized that the common thread that really ties all of the different components of my job together really is well-being. And that for quite some time, I would come to these meetings and other of these types of meetings and complain that I'm not at a big firm. I don't have all the resources that other places have. It's just me doing, what at a big firm would be 5 different jobs. And I've come to really appreciate that because I have my hand in all these different areas, I'm able to really sort of string the well-being throughout those areas, because as I think makes a lot of sense now to me, they're all related. So if we can improve our hiring process, then that will improve the number of attorneys from underrepresented groups that we have working on our staff, which will improve the general morale of our attorneys of color, right? Which will then translate into more opportunities for professional development, which will just then create more opportunities for everyone to grow and succeed and be well. So my point is, it's a very long-winded way of saying I have a bunch of different things I do, and they're all related together. And so for me, one of the initiatives, for lack of a better word, that I've been able to do is to really reframe my entire way of thinking and kind of reframe the firm's way of thinking about these as isolated different pockets of responsibilities, and think of them all as pieces of a well-being puzzle, for lack of a better metaphor. So that's sort of the general big picture background. I will talk a little bit about some specific initiatives, and I should have said at the beginning, we are, just in terms of context, our firm we're at today, the number changes every day, but today we are 49 attorneys, split pretty evenly between associates and partners. We do all manner of litigation as well. So then that's all we do is different litigation. So a couple of the things that we have been working on, and that I've been working on with the firm, is really trying to transform our hiring process. So our hiring process up until now has been, and the model has been, we hire when we need. Whenever someone leaves or all of a sudden we get a lot more work, we run around and we try to find a person who fits a very particular model of someone who was coming from a big firm who wants to transition to, doing more sort of active work on cases. And it was just been the model at the firm for forever. And I am very slowly, inching us away from that model and trying to get us into a more regular hiring process where we can bring in newer attorneys. So people right out of law school, people right out of clerkships, and just do it on a regular schedule. So hiring every fall, like other places do. And that gives us the ability to participate in law school recruitment efforts and job fairs. And I'm super thrilled. I just signed up for my first job fair that I'm going to go to in January. And, sort of shifting that model has really sort of helped us change who we're able to bring in. And sort of on the same token, or the flip side of that, is to sort of sell this to the firm, I had to create training for our new associates, because the training model, again, before this had been throw people into cases and see how it works, which we all know is not a good model. And so I've come from a training heavy background. So even though I'm not a civil litigator by practice, I've been able to put together really comprehensive sort of entry level training for that I now have all of our new associates, regardless of how much experience they have, go through this training. And I have to tell you that it has made a huge difference, not only in who we've been able to hire, but how people get integrated, how new lawyers get integrated into the firm. Because part of the training is, there's substantive knowledge to impart, but I very intentionally have the trainers be other associates, be mid-level and more senior associates. And that has really helped build community and has made the newer associates, who we all know are the ones who are most vulnerable to struggling with well-being issues, have a lot more supports. So that's one thing. I've really expanded our mentor program. Again, the firm likes to think that, we do a lot of informal mentoring, which we do, and certain associates aren't assigned to specific partners. So kind of everyone works with everyone, and that builds, gives people a lot of mentoring opportunities, but it also lets people slip through the cracks. So we have formalized a mentor program where someone has an assigned mentor, either a senior associate or a partner, just depending on level. And I have become quite strict about making sure that people are meeting with their mentees. And I've been trying to help support the mentors and giving them resources on how to be the most effective mentor. We've also started doing a number of programs firm-wide. And again, I look at everything from the associates lens, but all the programs we do are obviously open to all the attorneys at the firm. And so we've done programs on time management. We've done some programs on working in challenging situations. The most recent being working with challenging clients that we did, that have been really well received and opened up just a floodgate of really specific examples of things that had happened to attorneys on cases that they didn't feel comfortable bringing up in another forum. And so I was so thrilled that we were able to do that. We've obviously also been doing a lot of sort of general community building, and that's obviously shifted a lot through COVID, but I very intentionally wanted to make sure that we kept that up, even if it looked different during COVID, because I know for so many lawyers, that's part of where they get their well-being from, is from being supported and knowing that they're part of this bigger organization that's going to look out for them. And then I would say the sort of last two things is, one, I've tried really hard to, within our existing structure, make sure that the associates have a voice in decisions that are being made about the firm. We're a small enough place where I think the associates should have a say in, not the final word, but a say. And so our firm has an associates committee, which that's sort of their whole mission. And again, as we've been thinking a lot about return to the office and what that looks like and how it's going to happen, I've pushed really hard to have associates involved with that, because I think that makes people feel ownership, and that makes people feel better about their situation, and not that they're working for someone, but they're working with someone, which I think contributes a lot to well-being. And then the final thing is I do a lot sort of on a daily basis of kind of one-on-one coaching and talking and problem solving with people. I meet with all of our associates on a regular basis to go over their cases. So I can know who needs more cases and who needs different kinds of cases. But I've also really tried to start using those meetings as an opportunity to see how people are doing generally in the firm and generally in their lives. Obviously, I'm not a trained clinician by any stretch of the imagination, but I am a good listener, and I am really good, and I'm trying to get better at being kind of like the guidepost for people. So I can't solve all the problems, but I generally can figure out who can. And I can connect people with resources. And I've sent a lot of people to Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers. I've sent people to specific training programs that are going to benefit their sort of developing their skill set and, making them sort of happier in their work because they have the tools to do it. So I'm not entirely sure, Heidi, if that's what you wanted me to talk about, but that in a nutshell is what we've been doing at Todd Weld and what I've been trying to do with this really interesting and unique position that my firm had the foresight to create.
Thank you, Shira. That's fantastic. I mean, you just started in that position, how long ago?
March will be 3 years.
Okay. Well, that's a lot that you've done in the midst of a pandemic. So I kudos to you, and that's all wonderful work. And certainly, I think we all understand. We talk a lot about in our committee, some of these systemic issues and how the work that we're doing is it trickles down. And I like how you explained that. Great work over there, and thank you for sharing.
And I'm also happy to
have
answer questions.
Yeah,
sorry, I was going to say,
yes.
I'm happy to answer questions.
Yes, please. Does anyone have questions, comments? Yeah, Colin, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My name is Colin Black. I'm a professor at Suffolk University, and I started teaching about 4 years ago after about 20 years of practice. And I did a lot of the same things that you did, Shira, at one of my firms. One of the struggles that I found was buy-in from the managing partners on these initiatives. And so I'd be curious to your thoughts about that. How are you getting buy-in? And the other one is, the biggest complaint I found, and I did mostly litigation and litigation firms, was that the biggest impediment to well-being for a lot of associates was high billable hours and low pay. Consistent complaints about that. I'm curious if you're finding that the initiatives that you're taking are minimizing those concerns, or if those are still top complaints.
Thanks. Those are great questions and gave me an opportunity to talk about things I meant to say, but didn't in my initial talk. So to your second question first, our firm does not have a billable hours requirement. That predates me. That's sort of what the founders, sort of part of their vision of what the firm would be like. So we don't have billable hours requirements, which I think helps in general with well-being and sort of balance in the bigger sense of things. I will say, though, that since I've come to the firm, the number of non-billable activities and events and time has gone up because I'm creating opportunities and creating programming. And anytime someone comes to one of my programs I put on, or somebody teaches 9A to a new associate, that's time they're not billing. And so that has definitely been a bit of a struggle's a little bit extreme, but it's something that I've had to work on. And I mean, in a practical sense, went through the formalities of getting, all that time counted towards what we call Todd and Weld time. So internal time, so people can put it down. And also really sort of being really persistent with the various partners about why this matters. And I think, for the most part, the partnership is on board, and they want our associates to be happy and healthy, and because they know that's going to get them better work and less turnover for us. And so again, it's sort of back to my beginning point about tying a thread through all these different departments and all these different buckets of activities. I'm able to talk to the hiring committee about well-being, and I'm able to talk to the associates committee about well-being, and the diversity and inclusion committee about well-being. And I'm able to sort of frame each thing I do for that specific area and how that's going to translate into well-being. And these steps have been very small. I mean, I'm not nearly as far along on changing hiring as I want to be. And so for me, part of it is also just being really patient, which is not one of my best virtues, in trying to understand that even incremental change makes a difference, and it builds on each other. So I'm lucky to have a good amount of support from the partnership, but most things are not just, a flip a switch. Everything I've done takes work, and takes a lot of one-on-one conversations with people and creating allies within the partnership as to why this matters.
Thank you so much, Shira. That's great to hear. And keep it up.
Thank you.
Other questions for Shira?
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm not seeing anything else right now, but Shira, again, thank you so much for presenting today, and thank you for all of your efforts. And I hope you will stick around for just a bit. And if people want to have more of a discussion after our final speaker, that would be great. So I want to introduce our final speaker today. And our final speaker today is Anne Brafford. Anne Brafford is someone who has really been at the heart of the well-being in law movement. And she was one of the co-authors of the seminal National Task Force report on lawyer well-being, which I'm sure everyone here has seen. And she's currently the vice president of the Institute for Well-Being in Law, which is the newly formed 501c3 organization, which is basically formalized and is moving forward the work of the National Task Force. And so the Institute goes by IWIL for short. And so IWIL is working to support the state task forces on well-being, ours being one of them, to conduct research, to advocate for policy changes, and also to provide programming. Full disclosure to everyone here, I am on the board of directors as the vice president of policy and working very closely with the state task forces. So IWIL and Anne in particular have been working on the first annual Well-Being Conference, January 19th through 21st. So mark your calendars if you haven't already. I know I've sent, it's been in our newsletter a couple of times. Hopefully you do have it on your calendar. The title of the conference is Redesigning the Legal Profession for a Better Future. And it focuses on innovation to support individual, organizational, and institutional thriving. So I asked Anne if she would come here today to talk a little bit about what you can expect at this conference so that you all can go out and share the conference with everyone you know. So Anne, thank you for being here today.
Very good. Thanks so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed listening to all the great ideas that people are trying to figure out during this strange time to support well-being. And hopefully our conference will give you even more ideas. I'm really happy to have a chance to talk to you about it. This is our first conference. We literally are just barely a year old as a organization. And so we're excited to already be able to get a conference. It will be all virtual. And I've been wanting to have a well-being conference, large-scale well-being conference in the legal profession for like 7 years now. So I'm so excited that we're finally able to make it happen. And I see some friendly faces that know that this has been my dream for a while. So hi guys. So as Heidi said, January 19th to 21st, please mark it on your calendars. And what we try to do is tailor it to different stakeholders, and they will not necessarily be the same every year because different stakeholders have different needs. So we have 4 different tracks. The first track is for individual practitioners. And so that's practicing lawyers in any environment, big firms, large firms, small firms, medium firms, large firms. It's really more focused on our protecting and promoting our own well-being. And it's for that one, it's one track, but it goes over 2 days. It is the 19th and the 20th. So there's lots of options and really interesting, engaging ideas for track 1. For track 2, that is for workplace well-being. So there's focus more on the folks in organizations who are developing well-being programs. So not focused on their own well-being, but helping them figure out how to design and implement strategies for workplace well-being. Track 3 is specifically for law schools. And it's not for law students. It's all the programs are actually focused on like law school, more at the administration level. And then track 4 is for leading well-being in law. And it's focused on like law firm partners and other organizational leaders that influence the well-being of others. So again, in this track, it's not so much focused on their well-being, although partners really need a lot of support for their well-being as well, but it's focused more on what can they do as leaders that impact the well-being of others every day. And in that one, we're working on a number of things like great resignation panels to talk about what's going on and what can we do about it. We have a leadership speaker about positive leadership and how much it impacts the well-being of others. And we have all of that programming is really fantastic. I'm very excited about that. And what I'm even maybe more especially excited about is our keynote speaker. Some of you on the call know him and have been taught by him. Dr. Martin Seligman will be our keynote. He is kicking off the conference on January 19th. He'll be our very first speaker. For those of you who don't know him, he's the founder of Positive Psychology, was recently ranked the #1 most influential psychologist in the past decade. And that is in large part because of the enormous impact he had on creating positive psychology and getting the focus not only on curing ill-being, but also focusing on what is it once we're not ill, what does it mean to be well? And you'll see those themes throughout our conference as well, that it's absolutely about curing illness and also about trying to, once we get to that neutral space, how do we flourish? How do we support full well-being? A couple of other things we have. So those are kind of your traditional like 45 minutes to 1 hour sessions. We're also having what we call a vision lab. And it's kind of like a poster session if any of you have participated in something like that online. But this is going to be really like a collection of ideas that you can like go to and kind of filter through and see what ideas look interesting and then go into their room. There'll be like videos, materials, tools, best practices, those kinds of things. And that will be open during the entire conference. And if you know anyone are interested in supporting our institution and supporting lawyer well-being by sponsoring the event, there's also sponsorship opportunities from $1,500 to $5,000, and that's on the website as well. And so that's the gist of it. We're really excited about it. We're now I think we're under 40 days now until the launch of the conference. And it's shaping up really well for our first one. And I hope you all will sign up and join us.
Thank you so much. And appreciate you coming and talking to us about that, and obviously all of your work to make this happen. Does anyone have questions for Anne